I would like to call to order the Winthrop School Committee meeting of Monday, July 22nd, 2024, for 6 p.m. This meeting is being held in the Harvey Hearing Room, 1 Town Hall, 1 Metcalf Square. This meeting is being televised live and is also on Zoom. May I have the roll call, please?
Ms. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Lettieri?
Yeah.
Mr. Matucci?
Yep.
Ms. Petrie? Here. Mr. Purinton?
Present.
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are opening up our meeting with a public hearing tonight on our budget and the override discussion that we are going to be having as a school committee tonight. This is a topic that has been under discussion for my entire time on the school committee, and probably a little bit beyond that. It's been a long time since we have had an override, and we have been working diligently on our budgets and to maintain the quality of our schools under some trying circumstances. We have had underfunding from what we would consider to be level services year after year, and that has forced a lot of creative budgeting and creative thinking, and it has forced us to do with strategic cuts in order to maintain the quality of our school. And we are at a point where that is not going to be effective any longer. If we do not do something about the budget, we will not have the quality that we have had, and we will not have the money that we need to maintain our services. That's what we as a committee feel, which is why we have pursued this. We have asked for this public hearing so that we can hear from the public and understand what they would like to see moving forward as we deliberate tonight. So with that, I will open it up. I will ask that we limit our comments to no more than 3 minutes, and if someone has already reiterated, rather than repeating each other, let's keep the moving along. And if you could identify yourself in your district, that would be great. And with that, I will open the floor.
My name is Suzanne Swope. I'm in Precinct 4. I guess there's nothing more compelling than a good school system. I said we have tried everything we can. And I've been on the school committee for the last 6 years to try and make this work. Believe me, there's no one that's worked harder than Lisa Howard to make this happen. And no one of you have worked harder, except for her. It's curriculum. It's co-curricular activities. It's opportunities for our kids that other people have that we don't have here. And we don't have it not because of not the compassion or the work that's being done, but it's the money. It's the money. And so we can stop fooling ourselves to think that we can do it on nothing. We can't. And we have to work together, all of us. And a lot of you are good at marketing. A lot of you are good at compelling argument here. We have to do it. We have other competing priorities too. Not the least of which is we should vote no on 3A, sorry. And so in addition to that, we've got schools, we've got a firehouse, we've got a community that is underwater at points. All of these are necessary. We're just going to have to stop going out to dinner and start funding these schools. We can't do it without all of your support. And I so appreciate the work that's being done here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Kathleen Capuccio, 49 Waldemar Ave. Actually, I haven't even prepared. I just will say that some of the concerns that I've had over the past week is in different conversations that I've had with residents and friends that I frankly thought, when we was discussing an override for the schools, that would be an absolute yes. And I was shocked frankly, when I was talking to some people, that they were like, I don't know. And I kind of looked at them without trying to be rude, being like, well, what the heck are you thinking, to be quite honest? So my only thought is well, for one, I'm absolutely for an override. I know there hasn't been one in quite a while. I absolutely appreciate all of the work that Lisa and her team have done, you know, in FinCom and other presentations that they've done, just explaining just the needs, that why we need this money. My only thing, again, just based on these conversations I've had that have been concerning, is to an extent, this will be a political campaign. So my only suggestion to the school committee and to the town council and to others involved is to really get a very well-worded presentation out to the community as to, if we do not do an override, this is how it's going to affect your child, your grandchild, and even if, of course, you don't have a child in the system, how it's going to affect your property value, and just our town in general. You know, as we all know, especially though when you're a young family or a young couple or single, anything, when you're looking to go to a community to invest, whether it's to rent a home or to rent an apartment or lease or to buy, everyone looks at the school system. And I really feel that our school department, under the leadership it is, and our school committee has done its best. I think our town council has done its best to give as much funding that we can to the schools. But as we know, we don't have much for tax revenue in this town. And I think we absolutely need the override. But again, just the caution from me is, this is really going to be a campaign. As Suzanne mentioned, you know, we're talking about, you know, also potentially putting, you know, the fire station, our new fire station, which we desperately need, back on, you know, the ballot as well. But I just really feel like, you know, similar to when, you know, we built the new middle high school, it was really great presentations that were done as to, we can't really redevelop what we have because this is gonna be the cost. And I really think, and this is more my sister's, you know, area of expertise, but real financial analysis for people that's understandable, that if we don't do this, this is what we're going to lose. But I really feel that it's gonna, again, based on these conversations I've had, which I was very dismayed by, it's really gonna have to be a campaign to get the word out there, why we need this, what has been done, and really in your face, your child is going to not have certain, maybe extracurricular activities or certain specials in their classes. Their class sizes are going to go up. We're gonna have to lay off teachers. Forget about adding certain things, we're not even gonna be able to do that. So I just think that's just my suggestion, if you will, is that I think there's gonna be a really big push for information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Shannon Pelosi, Precinct 30. Just to piggyback off of what Kathleen said, I just think that, you know, bringing this up to the town council level, you know, to make sure that we're talking about the 2.5 override in relation to the school, but also in tandem with the fire station, because there's just a lot of big priorities that the town has. And so kind of to the marketing campaign, we've got to really make people understand sort of what does the next 5 to 10 years look like in our town, and what, you know, what's coming off the rolls, what's coming on the rolls, because I don't think we can have these conversations in silos. I think we need to kind of tie all these things together, because I do think that part of the reluctancy to pass a 2.5 will be for people to feel like there's just too many things being talked about right now without having sort of like one main vision. The only thing, other thing I would add, and we talked about this in FinCom, and I think Matt appropriately said it in some of our discussions, is that, you know, we talk about like level service and needs-based. I mean, you know, some of the things we kind of refer to as aspirational, I don't think we should actually be thinking about them as aspirational. I don't think we should be thinking about, you know, having multiple languages in our classes, in our schools, as aspirational. I think we should be thinking about, you know, that's like a basic level of expectation. And I think Matt framed that really well. And I think that's part of like kind of the selling point, is what do we really want for our kids, and don't make it just be about, you know, getting them like the basic, like we should actually be wanting more.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the Zoom?
Zoom struggling. I shouldn't be Zoom struggling. After this many years of Zooming, I'm having trouble getting people to be able to see the folks that are talking. They can hear everyone.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask the folks that are on Zoom, and there's 30 people on Zoom, which is really good. So
They raised their hand, I think.
I'm excited about that. If they would raise their hand. So I see somebody raising their hand now. If I can unmute them, that will be the trick. So I have.
Do it here, I think.
I can do it here too.
Okay.
Hi, Kurt, are you there?
Yes.
There you go.
I just want to tie in a couple of things that have already kind of been said, but it's not just the override that's being looked at. We've been looking as a whole, everything that's going to be increased. So the water bills are just got another $1 increase on it. The assessment on houses was increased. If we start adding all this up with the debt exclusion and now an override, people's wallets are getting really thin, and to tie into something else of don't go out to eat, well, that's gonna hurt our businesses here. We need to keep them trending also. I understand the school needs money. I've always said the school deserves money. But I think all of this coming, when people start seeing the total dollar amount of what it's gonna cost them per year, some people just are not gonna have that money. Now, some people in town do have the money, but I think it's gonna be a hard pill to swallow on this one, trying to add all of this together. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
We have someone else whose hand is raised, and that's Michelle. Michelle Rich? I think I unmuted you. I'm gonna try. So if you can unmute yourself, Michelle, then you should be good. There you
I
go.
actually didn't want to speak. I thought you needed all of us to raise our hands. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
well, thank you. So, you must be a teacher in you, but you know, I just looked at this and it says I can lower your hand for you, which must be a new feature. So I'm lowering your hand, but thank you.
I'm going to cook dinner.
All right, go cook dinner, thank you. Just let me scroll through my, really, this is not my forte. If anyone else who is on Zoom would like to speak, if you can raise your hand, not that I can see you, but I can see it on my computer, then I can unmute you. Anyone else? Scrolling through.
Rita Mansfield, Precinct 5. I'll just throw it out there. Hi, everyone. We're going to leave in a minute. Bring out that I've talked to quite a few people about the override, and the folks I talked to are in favor, but they're mostly parents. I have a fifth grader and a soon-to-be first grader. And I think it's important that we keep in mind to not just aim for that level service, which is similar to what Dan said, but a lot of people perk up the idea of maybe having band again, maybe having those languages, other things. And I think that if it's to have level service is what we go for, then I think we'll have a hard time getting people out to the polls. I think it'll excite people if we think we're going to get more and go for more. And I realize that's more money and it's hard on people, but we can't let our schools, kind of go down the tubes because we're just trying to maintain it.
Thank you.
I do not see any other raised hands, and I just tried to fix the volume for the people that are home, so if someone wants to text me and let me know that you can hear the Zoom video, that would be great. Working now, look at me.
Do we have any more comment from the room? If not, thank you for coming. We are going to be having this discussion immediately following this hearing and public comment, so if you want more information, I would invite you to stay and you can see those deliberations. Yes.
Sure. Austin Kingsbury, 10 Beach Road, parent, and just talking to my wife, I think it's important for all young parents, as has been shared, is looking for a town that is investing in its children. It's a town that's investing in its future. I think a town that's not doing that does not have its future. I think everyone here feels that, knows that. Just to share an agreement that just leveled service is it's already clear to children that we're not meeting the expectations, right? Because classrooms are not, that have been built are not actually being used for their purpose. They can tell that. They can tell there are low expectations for what they should be able to do in this town. So I just want to share in full support, and looking forward to seeing and finding ways to be supportive of this. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comment?
Chairman Powell, I would just like to personally and professionally as well thank everybody for physically showing up tonight. It means a lot to us as a school to have the public show their involvement, to show how much they care. I like to hear people who agree and disagree with me, as many of you know, or agree or disagree with the committee. Your voice is so critical in all of this. We will, and the committee and subcommittees who will be working on the override will be reaching out to people to get people involved. Your mere presence tonight gives me, as the superintendent of schools, hope that there is some momentum here and that we are going to be able to move forward for our children, and to be able to really understand why it is that schools do need overrides, and there is plans to be able to explain that, but explain it in a manner that people can understand. I understand this because I do this day in and day out. I can now talk about overrides and COVID, and clearly I need a little work on Zooming. Multitasking has always been something I've been pretty good at. But your mere presence here tonight does give me hope, and it's sort of a silent thank you for the work that is being done in the school system, and there's no one person that gets this work done. And I think it's super important for people to understand that. I actually get paid to do this job, which is nice. It helps. However, there are many people in my cadre of folks, and there's administrators that are here, but more importantly, there are administrators, there are teachers, custodians, cafeteria workers, children that need your support, and that also offer me support every single day. It takes a village. I've grown up in this community. I have seen overrides pass. I have not within the last 15 years, and why is that? Because we haven't had one. And I don't know that we'll necessarily get high fives walking down the street for not having an override in the past 15 years, but I think it's critical for folks to understand that we have not done one in 15 years. And if you do any research on school-based overrides in communities, they are typically happening every 3 to 5 years across the Commonwealth. Not coming back to you every 3 to 5 years in the last 15, I think that the school committees that we have had in the past and the superintendents that we have in the past should be commended for that. Nobody wants to have to pay more for things when they don't have the money to do so, or when they don't have to. Hindsight is when you go 15 years without an override and then you have to go for one, typically it's a little bit bigger than you would have liked it to be. There are a whole host of reasons why that happens. We certainly, as a group, and the group that's out there campaigning for the override, can provide that information as we move forward. I also think it's critical for people to understand that if you have a question, please do not turn to the places that can't give you the right answer. So I know social media is a beautiful place. If it's a social media platform that doesn't come from an override committee, my guess is they're not giving you the right information. Sort of if you have a stomach ache and you need to go to the doctor, you can go to the dentist. He could probably help you out. But if it's a gastrointestinal issue, I would say go to the gastroenterologist. And they will give you the information that will give you a better outcome. So please lean on myself. You can ask the school committee questions, the override committees that are coming out. That's where your factual information is going to come from. And please encourage people who talk to you, whether it's negatively or positively, to do the same, to reach out to the folks that actually can give you the right answer. I think that's critical. But again, thank you. You guys are giving me hope. I got chills when I saw all the people. It's not the same chills I got when everybody was here to go back to school when we couldn't open the doors. Those were different chills. I was a little scared. But this is encouraging, and I appreciate you all. And anyone who wants to stay and listen to the next part, feel free.
Thank you, Ms. Howard, and thank you, everybody, for coming on behalf of the committee. We really appreciate your presence and your voice for our school system. And with that, I will move the meeting along. I will adjourn the public hearing portion of it and move to the regular meeting. And we have first public comment. So is there any comment beyond what has been made to any other topic on our meeting tonight? Seeing none, I am going to move our subcommittee budget, the budget subcommittee out of order so that I can take that up now. And I will turn that over to Mr. Martucci, our budget subcommittee chair.
So we had a meeting just before this meeting. On the budget subcommittee is myself, Lane, and Julie. We discussed several different options, up as high as $9 million for a override, which would get us to FY30. We have other numbers here that get us to FY29, 28, 27, with extra money there for the stabilization account, which we are going to open up, I think, is this year. And what that does is that gives us the ability to add years to this amount of money when we get whatever we end up voting on tonight. If we have to put money aside to go to another year and it depletes pretty quick. The first year would be in the stabilization as part of this override, which we voted on earlier, and I'll give you that number in a minute. It will be a $1.4 million amount into stabilization. The following year, we're going to $142,000. So we were looking at a 3-year plan. It's hard because now we have to look at not only the needs of the kids, but we have to look at the taxpayers. We have to know or try to figure out what they're willing to pay. It's not easy right now. It's hard. Everybody's having a hard time. Money's tight. So we need to think about that too. We're here for the kids. We're here for the school. We're here to advocate for the kids. We do it every year. When we present our budget, we always present the needs-based budget to try to move forward and get extra programs for the kids and maybe even try to lower class size, although we have a class size right now is very good. But there's so many different things that we can do to add to make things better, but we don't get that money. The town is limited in their funding. They have real estate taxes, local receipts, state aid. There's not a lot of places for money. We don't have a big business. We don't have a lot of businesses in this town to subsidize more as a split tax rate. We don't have that. So there's limited amounts of money from the town, but the town's been very gracious with what they've given us, and we've tried to make it work. I think that right now we have a great school system. I think the school system's fantastic. We could use more programs that we don't have, but I think we provide a great education for our kids. I go in the schools, and I've said this a million times, in the spring, and I look at the letters of acceptance that our kids get, colleges they get accepted to, they go everywhere. Harvard, Stanford, Tufts, BC, BU, all school, Northeastern, there's letters all over the place. So we know that our school district provides the curriculum, instruction, and assessment to meet the criteria of that school in order to get accepted. They just don't accept you because you're from Winthrop. You have to be able to show that you're able to meet that criteria, and we do that. And our kids are great and smart, and we have, I think the school ground is great. The problem right now is that if we voted on putting forward to the town council $4,950,000. If we don't get that amount of money, I'm afraid that the school department will not be as great as it is right now. We're gonna cut services. We're gonna cut, and with 15% of that, with 85% of that being staff salaries, there's gonna be staff cuts, and among other things. So I really think that we need the committee thought that that was the best number to put forward, seeing that that would be a number that would get us to, let us maintain, let us maintain services. But then again, not asking for the townspeople to really dig into their pockets and hurt themselves. Because right now, like I said, it's tough. So we thought that number was a fair number for that and to be able to maintain what we have right now. I know people in the room are looking to do more. We may vote to do more. This is just a number we're recommending to the full committee in order to get a discussion going about that. So,
To open that discussion, can I have a motion to approve an override ask for the town of $4,950,000?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Petrie, second by Mr. Purinton. Now I will open that up for discussion. And I, right off the bat, have a question on the stabilization fund. So what you're saying essentially is that this is not, we're not asking for a $4.5 million increase next year. This would be spread out
3 years.
over 3 years. So a certain amount of it would be put away and then be used the following year, so that we would,
We wouldn't have to go for another override.
okay. And then I will open it up to discussion, questions, comments.
I can make a comment if nobody's going to jump up first. And I think it's more for the public than for the school committee, but, you know, keeping in mind the 2.5% increase that the town is able to increase taxes by 2.5% every year. And that's the max, that you can increase 2.5%. The cost of education, not just in Winthrop, but in the entire world, not just the cost of education, but the cost of milk, the cost of bread, the cost of your kids', sports programs, the cost of hotels when you go to go away, just going to Target just to buy daily items, on average is increasing far above 2.5%. As somebody who does the bills for the school district and, pays the expenses for the school district, our expense budget being 15% of our budget, which is relatively small, is everything other than people, and that in and of itself rises at a cost well beyond 2.5% per year. So if you figure that the 2.5% taxes that come in to the town as an overall bucket of money to fund everything, the fire, the police, the DPW, and the school department, when you think of that and you match that to the fact that health insurance went up 9.5% last year, that's a lot higher than 2.5%. The cost of paper, toilet paper, we need toilet paper in schools, just in case anybody didn't know that. The cost of the Xerox contracts, cost of curriculum and materials that we need to put in the hands of our children, all of that has risen above 2.5%. So just from a simplistic mindset, if all the town can come up with every year is 2.5% more, and everything we do costs typically above 3 to, in some cases, 9.5%, you can see how eventually our ability to pay the bills runs out. And there are expenses that we have to have in order to keep a school running: heat, electricity, goods and services for our students, paper products, curriculum, you name it. Security systems for our kids to keep our kids safe, which is the #1 priority of the Winthrop Public Schools, above and beyond anything else. If all those things are exceeding 2.5%, how do you keep up? You keep up with grants, you keep up with outside revenue sources, like the money that comes in by us taking in international students, by us having to pay a fee for preschool. So those buckets of money come into the schools. And for years, we've been able to access those buckets of money to help pay for the things that end up pushing us, that 2.5%, we can't get more than that, but everything else is going up, so where are you getting the money from? Those are the places, the town's 2.5% that they can give us, plus the grants we receive, plus any revenue accounts that we're able to put together. As you all know, as a school committee last year, to build this school year's budget, we had to go to some of those outside revenue sources that we have, which are minimal. The international student account, the preschool accounts. whether it's a safety grant that we wrote, and we had to drain those accounts so that we could open the doors July 1st of this year with a minimal reduction. And at number one priority was not to reduce our teachers or our support staff so that our kids didn't suffer. And so that our class size stayed the same. And all the while that all this is happening in our world, things have changed dramatically. So the child that was in front of the teacher 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, or last year, is different when the child comes to school this year. Their backpack is filled, not just with their lunch and their toys for recess and, extra things, that their house key, things of that nature. It's filled with emotion. That emotional backpack is more full than it has ever been. And that is not unique to Winthrop. And it is not new to us as educators. Our students had difficulty prior to COVID, in case anybody didn't know that. Things just have gotten worse. So if you can only increase taxes by 2.5%, and if you drain those outside accounts because you don't want to go back to the taxpayers for money, and if you get all kinds of money from the federal government during a pandemic, and that money ends, you're now in an educational pandemic. And that educational pandemic is not unique to Winthrop. Winthrop is one unique place, trust me, I get that, born and bred here. But our educational pandemic is nationwide right now. And I think it's critical to understand that when we do go out and ask for an override, we needed to be realistic as to what the people can handle. So I want a $9.8 million override. I will talk to you about that on the flagpole at Town Hall, because I want everything for our students. We, as a school district, because remember I told you I don't do this by myself, it would be really hard. We, as a school district, want a $9.8 million override. That is not realistic in the current world we live in right now. What I don't want is to open the doors of the school next year with 30-plus less humans to educate, keep safe, and take care of the students of our community. And that message is going to keep coming, I can promise you that. So I do understand the number that we have landed on, which will allow us to open the doors, not losing anything, and with a mindset to get creative, which we're pretty creative. I don't know if there's much left there, but we're pretty creative about how to do more with that money that we receive. A 5-year override would be wonderful, but that's talking about between 6 and 9 million, like Mr. Martucci said. I do think your number is reasonable, and I just wanted to articulate that to the full committee as well as the public. But if I had $1 million, I'd want it to be 9. And I'd sing this song, but I don't want to upset anyone.
Yes, Ms. Berry.
Lisa, can you share the timing of the override too? Because I want people to understand that the 24-25 school year we're covered for that.
Right. So I'm like an override genius now. I didn't know a whole heck of a lot about overrides a couple of months ago. So the override would, I'm just making sure I don't have anybody trying to get in my waiting room. An override that would go on the ballot in November, if it was voted favorably, which I believe it will be based on the articulate plan to educate the community with factual information and actually answer questions as well. If that were to pass, the taxpayers would see that, and someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, would see that not in November, but in July. So it's not an automatic sort of like playing a slot machine. You win and all of a sudden it's there. That's not what it is. It would start to affect the taxpayers beginning in July of 2025.
And that it would fund the 25-26
That would,
school year.
so if the override, the figure you put out was 4.5 million?
4.95.
Say it again?
4.95.
4.95. We need $3,877,103, is my prediction, to open the schools in FY '26 without reducing staff or services. So why are we asking for that large amount if that's all we need? because in order for that money to last in an override, you would take of the 4.9 that we receive, you would take the exact 3 million, go back again. put the
3,530.
old sheet is on, yep, the 3,877,103, and you would use that towards the school year, and then you would take the balance of the money of the override and put it in what's called a stabilization account. That means that money that's in the stabilization account would help support FY '27. And each year the override monies come in, you use less of it in the first year, more of it in the second year, more of it in the third year, and you keep trying to stretch it out. And during those 3 years, we may receive some more grant funding. The government may wake up and understand that they should be fully funding public education. If that happens, you'll see me cartwheeling on front lawn of Town Hall. However, and that means that could potentially last us longer than 3 years, could last us 4 years. It's a pretty interesting calculation of how that money is used. But what I can tell you with, it's hard to project a year out. You see how much work goes into doing the budget year to year. It's starting in December and not even getting it nailed down until May. But you can reasonably predict the cost of education if things don't dramatically change. You can reasonably predict that over a period of 2 to 3 years. So in doing that reasonable prediction, that's where that $3 million need for next year to be level service has come from. Does that make sense?
Further questions? Yes, Ms. Leonard.
Yes, I'm just going to address this to Mr. Martucci. What would this, if a 4,950, if this were to pass, what would this look like on your average homeowner's bill in July?
So we obviously get some nice figures on that from the CFO and Lisa. So it looks like it's $184 a million per year on the average tax. So you're looking at about $1,000
A year.
per year, yes.
And it would be 3 years of $1,000?
No.
Just one?
Continue.
It's a one-time.
So,
Mr. Lettieri.
so, Gus is right on. It's roughly $184, $189 on the average house. The average house in Winthrop right now is considered to be assessed at $689,000. So on the average house, a $4.95 million override is roughly $935. An override, different from a debt exclusion, is in perpetuity. It's not just for 3 years, it's continuous. That money would be continuously paid. There are certain things that will come off the rolls. Miller Field will be coming off the tax rolls in 4 years, which will save the average taxpayer roughly $300 and change. The middle high school will be coming off the tax rolls in a while longer, but in roughly 15 years, that will save the average taxpayer $800 and change a year. So we are asking for an override, which is in perpetuity. It will continue at that amount, that $935 odd on the average house. Lisa made a lot of really good points, and Gus also, and one of them mainly being this education stabilization account, which we've wanted to start for quite a while now. And this is where, roughly 25% of this money will go in the first year. And then, as Lisa said, we will use that money to cover shortfalls in future years. The school also, like any other business, hopefully at the end of the year has turnbacks, right? They might have accounts that are over from the year, and that money now can go into a stabilization account, which, like Lisa said, will extend this hopefully to 4 years. The fact that we haven't had an override, and this doesn't mean we need one because we haven't had one, but the fact is we had an override last in 2009. And in 2009, we were incredibly transparent with it. We laid out every number, where it's going to go, what you're going to get for it. And the citizens of Winthrop were incredibly appreciative of that and passed that override. We have stretched that, typical 4 to 5 year override for the up until now 15 years. Now, COVID was very bad in a lot of ways, but in some ways it helped extend this request for an override another couple of years. But the fact of this is, you're looking at, I do agree, there was a few comments on, giving something back instead of, asking for 4.9 million to continue what we have. Do we want to have some extra programs? Do we want, a goal of mine has always been to eliminate user fees. Because I think it's incredibly harmful to charge families up to it could be some families, depending on the number of kids and number of sports, paying $1,000 a year to play a sport. To include that in an override is roughly $28 a year per family. Now, that spreads it out to families who don't have kids playing sports or extracurricular activities, which there are people paying $100 to have an activity fee to participate in certain things within the school. And I don't think that is the right thing to do. We want to offer kids as much as we possibly can. Gus, I think, hit the nail on the head that we have a very competitive school system. We do the best we can with what we have. We are not asking for the sky. And I know Matt, the chairman of the FinCom, has said we're not asking for aspirational type budgets. We're asking for what we think will give our kids a fair and very competitive education. It is a lot of money. $5.5 million, no matter how you slice it, is an awful lot of money. And you don't want to get into that, it's a cup of coffee a day, because that's what you hear on most overrides. But you want to be factual about it. You want to get as much possible information as you can, because it is for the benefit of our kids. The school system, Lisa in particular, has done an incredible job keeping class sizes in the low 20s. We don't want to see them in the high 20s to low 30s. That would be just an incredible disservice. We also have a list of, I think it's 80 school districts, 80 cities and towns in the last 2 years that have gone for overrides. Some of them are small, and they're small because they continue to go for overrides. It's like, instead of getting that sticker shock once every 15 years, you get into a pattern where you're asking everybody's groceries, everybody's gas bill, everything is going up every year. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We've had inflation as high as 9% over the last couple of years, and we've tried to do the same with the same amount of money. So I encourage you, education is the key of this. It's the key. This is what it's for. It's also key for the voters to understand this and get the correct information. Ask the school committee. I'm sure there'll be many coffee hours going on. I'm sure there's going to be shows on WCAT trying to explain the numbers. But in the end, I wouldn't tell anybody to vote yes. I'd tell you to vote the way you should vote, on what you can afford. There are people that just can't afford it, and I would never ask them to pay that. But, you have to be extremely well educated, ask questions, get the information. If you have a suggestion, please give it. The school committee's done an awful lot of work on this, along with the superintendent, to try to get to a number that they think is palatable for the taxpayers, as well as doing a service to our children, because, there was just a little boy, a little girl, I don't even know at this time. But there was somebody that just left, and I'm looking at that child saying, wow, that's the class of 2041, and that's what we're doing it for. We're not doing it just for our kids that we just put through school, or our grandkids, or whatever. We're doing it for everybody, because that is, I know Kathleen mentioned it, and that is one of the first things people look at when they go to a community, is they look at their school system and how much is the town investing in their school system, and how much do they care about their school system. And it's written on the side of the old Willis School, which is now on the side of the ATC school, which we took from the building, that says the future of our nation depends upon its youth. And it was well said 100 years ago when they put it up there, and it's still well said now. And how much we choose and the type of community we want to have is dependent upon, education. Everything stems around that. So, I would like to see some additional programs looked into this, and I'm sure the superintendent will look into that. But again, get educated, ask questions, and participate. You can't really come to us to participate, but I'm sure there'll be a group out there, and I'm hoping that they'll get information out in a timely manner that you can go to them and ask them and tell them you want to help, you want to participate, you want to host a coffee hour, you want to have a lawn sign, you want to do whatever you wanted to do to help. So, thank you.
Can I correct one? I made an error. Here I am telling everybody, be factual, get the facts. I made an error on the amount of money that it would cost the school district to open in FY '26, predicted amount of money that it would cost us to open in FY '26. And that figure that I gave you was $3,877,000. That is not correct. The level service increase to open predicted or estimate for FY '26 is actually $3,530,859. So I just wanted to correct that number, so for those of you who are writing it down, and again, you will be able to access this information. We needed to get this number to the town council, and the committee needed to vote on it in terms of how much we would need for an override, but this type of data will be available to people to crunch and look at and better understand.
Further comment?
Jen, could I just make one
Yes.
comment? It's just a sort of a correction, slight correction to Jim, which is to say, I want to piggyback on something Kathleen, I think you said, that this is a campaign, and this is a campaign. And it's really important, I think, that we understand that this is a campaign that public officials can and hopefully will be heavily participating in. I did some research on campaign sort of finance laws, and so basically, I can help to organize folks surrounding the override. The only thing that I cannot do is fundraise, or that we cannot do is fundraise. And so it's going to be really important to have citizens from the community who have this expertise, marketing expertise, fundraising expertise, financial expertise. So I think it's really important that you all understand that you can, Jim just said, if you want to host a coffee hour, you can't come to us. You actually can come to us to work as a liaison between the folks on this committee who are active in the campaign. But again, I do want to say that it is really important to understand that this needs to run like anybody, any campaign, right, for an elected office, which means no elected official can put their own, well, actually, I could personally fund it, I just can't fundraise, so I can't ask you for money. So I will not be coming to ask you for money, but one of you might ask another one of you for money, and that's all. So this, I just think that this really is gonna come down to, piggyback on Jim, it's really gonna come down to education of the community, right, so that we understand what's at stake. And just to really underscore this issue of class sizes, we have actually exceptionally low class sizes. The very beginning of the school year, I asked Lisa to pull class sizes for each of the grades. And I have to say, I was so proud. I was so proud of Lisa and her work and the teachers and our school system. Our class sizes are enviable. And I think that's one of the most legible things that's at risk if the override doesn't pass. So again, I just want to say that I think there's some clear things at stake, and there's some really clear things we can do, which is to get the message out, help and participate. I know organizing has already started, but I think it's really going to kick off in earnest once the school committee has voted, whether to endorse this and bring it to the town council. So I guess this is my kickoff speech. Thank you.
My hope, of course, is that the override, my hope is, of course, that the override does pass so that we can make it through the next few school years without needing to cut services or any of the supports that our students need. And my goal in the meantime, once the override does pass, we know that our schools are in a good place, is to also work with the town on finding alternative revenue streams so that the citizens of the town know that the town is also doing its due diligence and finding ways to maintain the support that we're continuing to provide for our schools. So I think that is important because it is a collaborative effort, and I think that I want to make it known that is my goal.
Further comment? Yes, Mr. Harrington.
To Superintendent Howard, just to make sure I followed you correctly, the $3.53 million that the override would provide to fiscal year '26, that's to make up for what the town would be more than likely able to provide for the school budget that year, correct?
It's to make up
hit
for
our
what,
level.
it's the delta between what the town could provide us, or can provide us based on the 2.5 levy.
Okay.
And what we actually need. So in essence, that we would need that 3.6. I would otherwise be asking for that as a level service budget. And just given the trajectory of the income that's coming into the town with the 2.5% levy and the like, that amount of money is not going to be even close. So that 3 million, they would not have.
Right.
And I don't know if anyone else wants to expand on that.
If you just want to say too, that 3.5 million is not the typical year. We're 1.4 million
Correct.
short in fiscal '25, which is starting in
Correct.
September. So the superintendent and her staff had to look at all outside accounts to try to drain those or to try to come up with a way to make up that delta. So now that delta is potentially ratified for this year, however, that will roll into next year. So 1.4 and change of that 3.5 is the shortfall that we already have coming in.
Typically, we would have been about 2.1 short, but we're struggling with a deficit that we had to make up for this year from last year.
Mr. Martucci?
So in that 4,950 is a historical figure of what the town gives the school department every year. So it's already there already. So that, the shortfall of the 3 million, or whatever, 3.8, is it 3.5, was it?
3.5.
That would be including what we think we may get from the town
Correct.
by past history.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Any further comment? Hearing none, I will call for a vote, and may I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Lettieri?
Yes.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Petrie?
Yes.
Mr. Purinton?
Yes.
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, July 8th, 2024?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Petrie, second by Mr. Purinton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. May I have a motion to approve warrant SVW 24-23 in the amount of $226,151.85?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Berry, second by Mr. Purinton. Any discussion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call?
Ms. Leonard? Mr. Lettieri?
Yes.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Petrie?
Yes.
Mr. Purinton?
Yes.
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes. May I have a motion for warrant SVW 25-1 in the amount of $84,443,049?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Petrie,
Can you just read that number again?
$84,443.49.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Petrie, actually,
Second.
second by Ms. Berry. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lettieri?
Yes.
Mr. Matucci?
Yes.
Ms. Petrie? Yes. Mr. Purinton?
Yes.
Ms. Barry?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes. May I have a motion to approve a request for use of the William P. Fort Banks
Motion to approve.
by the PTO for kindergarten social? Motion by Mr. Martucci.
Second.
Second by Ms. Petrie. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? Hearing none, motion passes. Do we have any superintendent's report beyond what has already been said?
Just a couple of quick little things. We're actively filling our positions, just as an update to the school committee. We have not filled or concluded the process with the middle school assistant principal opening. We are still working on that, as well as the athletic director opening. I will update the committee once those positions have been filled. And then, just to speak about enrollment, our enrollment continues to increase. We have actively registered new students, never been in our preschool or anything like that. As of right now, there are 113 new kindergarten registrations. That's a big number for July, just historically, which is good. We're working on the final prediction for kindergarten, but I anticipate with the current preschool students that we had 66 preschool students this year. Not all of them are turning 5, so not all of them are eligible for kindergarten, but if you add some of those students to the 113, I am projecting close to 169 potentially for kindergarten, and that's the largest number that I have seen in the 7 years that I've been here. So projections for, as of July, for grades 1 through 12, we have had an increase of 33 new students, 26 newly enrolled students in the month of July in grades 1 through 12, 4 in the first grade, and primarily the largest group has been at the high school. We've had 6 ninth grade students registered, 3 10th grade students, 3 11th grade students. The next largest bump was first grade, in which there were 4. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because that number, at the end of the school year, the total amount of students we had as school closed and some kids transitioned on, and still including our senior graduates, there were 1,977 students. As of today, with my prediction with Kay, and also predicting that we'll probably have, on average, we have between 60 and 70 preschoolers, and those are some kids that are full day, some kids that are appointment only. I'm predicting over 2,000. So I have 2,010 as a number right now, which I'm feeling very comfortable with, and that is certainly an increase from 1,977 students from last year. Keep in mind, first and second grade went from 8 teachers down to 7, and that was to make up for the shortfall for the budget for FY25. That was part of our budget reduction. So currently, there are 7 classroom teachers in each grade level, K to 5. There was 8 last year in first, 8 in second. This coming school year, there's 7 in each one. And those are the 2 things I wanted to give you an update on.
Any public relations?
Public relations, do we have public relations, Patty? We do not. We have had nothing submitted, but that's not unusual at this time.
No, it's the dead of summer. Any public relations from the committee? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Martucci, second by Ms. Petrie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. We are